The fleet I run for Rollins is 18,000 vehicles, but there's only 4 on my staff.
Oh, wow.
We grow through acquisition, close to 4,000 or more vehicles every year. Day one, that business that we just purchased has to operate because it's got to serve all those customers.
Today, our guest is Charles Schott, Fleet Director at Rollins. From global programs at Pfizer to armored vehicles at Brinks, Charles has spent his career building fleet operations across the world.
The big F word in our fleet is flow. Everything's got to flow. Anything that sits gets my attention because that means we're losing money. It's not earning revenue out on the street. This fleet management business is like the air traffic controller. It's landing all that equipment while there's equipment taking off. And that's really the life of my role here as director of fleet. If we're not the best support to the business, then we're not doing our job.
Charles, welcome to the fleet.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I'm excited to hear. You got a lot of interesting experience, kind of going from, Army to logistics there, and Pfizer and Brinks, and you got a lot of interesting experience there. So, tell me a little bit about your history.
So, I started in the Army out of college and was a platoon leader, company commander, always around equipment. As an engineer officer, I had 50 dump trucks, bunch of bridge, good engineering equipment. And as always, as a kid, grew up around equipment. I'm a car guy by heart. So I kind of landed in a great spot. And when I left the Army and started in the corporate world, I ended up, again, as an operations guy, is my background, manufacturing operations, rolling mills, slitting, annealing, steel mills. I've been kind of in the hardcore blue collar, show up to work with, my steel-toed shoes and a hard hat and a bowling shirt with my name on it. And then when I ended up in New York City for Pfizer and was sent over to Europe as head of international purchasing for Europe at the time, fleet became one of the highest dollar items in the indirects. And I ended up getting my foothold in the fleet industry in the early 2000s, the late 1990s, I guess it was, with Pfizer Global Fleet. So, and I kind of landed where I started, which was equipment and fleet. And from there, I've been doing fleet now for, going on almost 30 years.
Well, I think, I talked to a lot of folks in the fleet side, fleet management side, and a lot of them have like that military background. Because, when you look at it, there's like probably no bigger logistics operation than the U.S. military. That is like the core mission of the military. But you also have like another thing in here that strikes me as really interesting is sort of the Brinks side of things. Those are pretty heavy duty vehicles.
Oh, yeah. I like I said, I put my toe in the water with fleet with Pfizer and built a global fleet with Pfizer and over 30 some thousand vehicles in, I think, 70 different countries around the world. But really, when you start talking fleet and equipment, that was replacing a lot of vehicles, turning over a lot of vehicles. Where I really got grease under my fingers was Brinks, class 1 through 8 vehicles, the Peterbilts, the Internationals, the Freightliners, having mechanics back on staff. I felt like I was back in the Army because I had a motor pool again, and hiring certified maintenance technicians in multiple states, running shops, and really the introduction to fleet, or the full range of fleet operations, is you really get running a heavy duty fleet like Brinks armored truck.
Yeah. Well, Rollins is no slouch either. You've got to have a ton of vehicles for Rollins.
Well, that kind of completes the picture. I started over here on one end of the spectrum with a high sedan fleet, global entity around the world. Ended up in Brinks, which is a very much of a one upfitter. Your armored trucks, most of your values in the armory of that truck up to Class 8 vehicles. Yeah. And now I've swung here and I'm kind of right in the middle of those two ends of the spectrum where I've got 18,000 vehicles running around the country. A lot of them Class 1, 2, and 3, vehicles where I'm doing the upfitting, but not nearly what I was doing in Brinks, but certainly a lot more than you do what I call a more of a vanilla fleet, which is, leasing vehicles and leasing sedans.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, talk about the vehicles. I mean, one of the cool things about your career is you kind of gotten to see it all. And we're in a place right now where there's a lot of changes happening to the industry, right? And I got to imagine you're looking at a lot of different things for your fleet. I mean, can you talk about what, Rollins is well, what does that fleet look like?
So the fleet I run for Rollins is, like I mentioned, 18,000 vehicles. Say
Yeah.
15,000 of those vehicles are class 1, 2, or 3 trucks. We're running, the classic half-ton pickup truck, the quarter-ton pickup truck, and then we're running some box trucks. But primarily, my fleet is, a utility fleet, some upfitting to where we're putting some camper tops and some ladder racks and some bed slides into the vehicle car and some other equipment for, Rollins as a pest control company.
Yeah.
But the challenges of a fleet when you start talking upfitting is really supply chain management,
Right.
and everything. Vehicles are assets that we optimize, and our efficiency of our supply chain is to keep vehicles moving. And the amount of vehicles that we're putting into a fleet of 18,000, on the order of close to 4,000 or more vehicles every year, where it's a dynamic environment where nothing sits. The big F word in our fleet is flow. Everything's got a flow. And that's on both ends. That's the incoming for when we're, replacing vehicles, repositioning vehicles, and it's also on the sales side. We got to have flow through the auctions and, pick up at our branches, so we don't have vehicles sitting. So anything that sits gets my attention, because that means we're losing money. It's not creating, earning revenue out on the street with our pros and technicians. It's either sitting at an auction house, which means it's not sold, or it's sitting at a dealership. I mean, it's not picked up, waiting for, ITNR. So it's got to move. Everything's got to move. If it sits for any period of time, that's when it gets on my list. And yeah, I guess you don't want to be on Charlie's list.
Yeah, I imagine not. So yeah, with your fleet, like how, I mean, obviously flow is a big part of it, keeping vehicles on the streets, moving, in use, high utilization numbers. What do you look at to, like really identify, that you're achieving that kind of utilization that you need, and that your business is running well on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So our mission is to optimize, like any fleets, optimize TCO based upon the business priorities. And our business is somewhat seasonal. So we're trying
Okay.
to match the bug business, if you will. And bugs come out in the warmer season, although we do have pest control business where things like to come inside in winter. If you've
That's
ever
for sure. Oh, I
heard,
know well about
in
that.
so as we try to match our supply chain to the business requirements and the business needs, we're doing those things of leveraging economies of scale. As our ability we grow through acquisition. So the Rollins company is a large pest control conglomerate of 20 different brands, and our brands are distinguished by their own vehicles, their own decals. But what we're trying to do is leverage those economies of scale with the OEMs, with the upfitters, with the parts suppliers, and generate that return to the business where we can demonstrate that our total cost of ownership through an acquisition is actually optimized, or we're adding value, because as a central repository for all this equipment, both moving in and moving out, we can generate economies of scale for our supply base. The OEMs, the transporters, the upfitters, all of that has got to be, we're like the concert master here. And I saw I saw a great, I won't take credit for it, but I saw a great metaphor or analogy of this fleet management business is like the air traffic controller. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen that, Chris, but it's landing all that equipment while there's equipment taking off and having no disastrous events. And that's really the life of in my role here as director of fleet. I've got a lot of different equipment moving around the country. Like I mentioned, 20 different brands who it's like 20 different airports
Right.
and we're landing equipment, removing equipment, building equipment for these different brands and making sure that they have the tools of the trade to optimize their business and compete every day. So it's that repetitive nature, and fleet is a cyclical business. Anybody that's been doing this for as long as I have and has been around it as long as you have know that fleet is every year we wash, rinse, and repeat and start the process all over again. And so we go to school off of what we did last year. Not that we just slot it in. We look at what we do well, where can we tighten down and get better on our costs. We have an annual strategy and planning meeting. Our strategy may not vary that much, like I mentioned, optimize total cost of ownership, but the plan to meet that. Well, if we buy a new acquisition and it's now operating in 13 states, I look up 2 years later and they're operating in 13 states, and they went from 770 vehicles in that acquisition. Now they're over 1,100. So we're dealing with a lot of growth,
Yeah.
a lot of internal growth, a lot of acquisitions, bringing in new fleets into our formula, if you will, or our programs, and helping them add value to the business. So that's the nature of the fleet business. We're if we're not the best support to the business, then we're not doing our job.
As a fleet leader, you're juggling a lot. Driver safety, vehicle uptime, cost control. That's where Element Fleet comes in. With industry-leading data, proactive maintenance programs, and risk management solutions, Element helps you keep your fleet moving efficiently and safely. They partner with you to tackle challenges head-on so you can focus on delivering results. Ready to take your fleet performance to the next level? Visit elementfleet.com. So tell me about the acquisitions, because I think that's an interesting piece, because you guys have rolled up a lot of companies. And the interesting thing about that is, like, because you're national, and I got to imagine that the nature of the business requires certain things in certain states and other things in other states. And, you talk about keeping flow optimized and, one, do you get involved in like the due diligence process for when, your company's doing those acquisitions? Because I got to imagine that's a significant portion of the assets of the company that you're buying, right? But beyond that, you got to, like, what state is that fleet in? I mean, it seems like that's going to be like, getting back to I know your Army, I was going to say Marine landing, an Army landing, coming in and kind of like triaging everything and getting everything, figured out, right?
Well, you've hit what was a real sore point when I joined a little over 4 years ago. We were not involved in the acquisition. Of course, acquisitions, those are, investor type.
Yeah.
Everybody
wants to keep everything
sign
secret.
an NDA, you got to be secret. So you're brought in. Well, we weren't brought in early on. And what happens in an acquisition, we can be anywhere from a small acquisition of small family owned 1 truck, 3 truck operation to what I just mentioned, over 700 vehicles in 11 different states.
Yeah.
And so we're brought in under the NDA and the cloak of secrecy, saying you can't tell anybody this, but day one, we have that business that we just purchased has to operate because it's got to serve all those customers, all those commercial businesses that are relying on, our services to run their restaurants, run their warehouses and what have you, or all those residences that are, counting on their pest control technician to show up because he shows up every third Wednesday of the month. That just happens to be the day the deal goes down. So there's certain things that we have to issue day one. Fuel cards, big item. You got to have fuel cards. Got to be able to continually build. So depending upon how the acquisition is structured, whether it's an all stock deal or whether it's we're purchasing a business that through a third party, or we're actually purchasing one of our franchisees. We have to be read in on it and plan. So we did an acquisition about a year ago, and they were doing some things of that acquisition where they allowed their teammates, we call them teammates, not employees, they allowed the teammates to use their own personal vehicle to do pest control. Well, a company the size of Rollins with as much exposure as we have, that's a no-no. You cannot transport, and this was not, it almost cashiered the deal because they didn't find out until 3 weeks before the ultimate close.
Oh, wow.
When they found out, they said, well, oh, geez, we're going to have to get trucks from 4 or 5 different brands, get them to this location. And I said, time out. Wait. The last thing we want to do is bring a new teammate on and give him somebody's old vehicle. Somebody gets one with 50,000 miles with somebody else's decal on it. Somebody gets a different colored vehicle. I said, no, let the fleet team try and pull one out of the hat here. We went to the OEM. We went to our established supply chain and said, listen, we needed to divert 31 trucks from one operation we had, got them upfitted, got them to that place in the Midwest and had them staged. And I sent one of my fleet managers out there and I said, now here's the thing. Don't wear any Rollins at it, because we couldn't let them know the deal was going down. Right. We parked them in their parking lot. We said, you're from the trucking company. You're just here. They're getting new vehicles. What's going on? So we had to keep the whole thing secret, and we're able to pull it off. And to this day, it's talked about as one of the signature events, because bringing on a new company, there's fear of the teammates. Are we losing our job? There's fear of the customer saying, well, wait a minute, we didn't choose. We're competing. Some of our brands are competing in that business. So the formula that the company Rollins has is rarely, unless it's a smaller acquisition, we'll keep the name of the brand and we'll integrate that company into the Rollins, not to say, hey, you just joined Rollins, this is the way you do it. We learn from them. Our fleet department sets up a weekly integration call, and we've adopted some of their upfitters where we've needed exposure out in the West U.S. We adopted some upfitters from some of our acquisitions. So we learn from, not everything was created here. We're continually refining our processes and programs, and it's a great way to keep yourself fresh in the business through these acquisitions. So it's a great opportunity because, as you mentioned, the business has evolved and it's continuing to evolve, and it's quick. There's AI. There's all sorts of activity happening in each one of the little niches, whether it's the upfitters, the decalers, the transporters. We're getting better at our game. And to go back to what your initial question is, each state is doing its own things.
Right.
So
especially around something that's regulated like pest control.
Not only pest control, but the fleet business. And
the fleet business too.
We have to have a great relationship with our fleet management company, because there's only 4 on my staff. I'm a staff of 4, including myself. And to run that much equipment, we've got very good relationships with all our suppliers and very intimate relationships with our fleet management company.
So, obviously, you said that one of the biggest challenges was not getting a seat at the table when they were doing these acquisitions. Do you have any advice for a fleet leader who's in that situation where, they're walking in and they're kind of getting hit, really blindsided by like some things? I mean, like that story you tell is amazing. I got to imagine that people were less concerned about their jobs when they saw a whole fleet of new vehicles in their parking lot after the announcement. So that has to be really nice, but you can't do that for everyone. But like how do you get a seat at that table to like communicate the value that you can add there?
So, Yeah, I guess that's a great question. And so whenever you come into a new organization, first of all, you have to earn that seat at the table. And the way you earn that seat at the table is be a problem solver.
Yeah.
No matter how, don't swing for the fences the first time you go up there and say, oh, we're going to, lower your cost by, X% a year, because over promising and under delivering is a sure cause for failure. Usually, when you're brought into a fleet operation, there's going to be opportunities that are things might be going very well, but there's going to be issues that where the fleet is underperforming. Talk to your customers, find out what they need from you, no matter how small, and help them be better at their job. Be a problem solver. I teach it to my team all the time. I said, there's one thing we do is we root cause. We use the Lean Six Sigma method in our approach. We use small projects. If it's longer than 6 to 8 months to complete, I said, redefine your problem statement. Go back and put it into a chunk of a year.
Yeah.
And if that's our mode for I'm a continuous improvement guy, Lean Six Sigma, black belt from my operations background. It's very helpful in this fleet business. I use it every day, and we are very, very diligent. Maybe that's my military background. We're very disciplined in our approach to problem solving, and it's enabled us to earn a seat at that table, to earn the trust of the business, to help our partner suppliers. We teach them the same methodology and help them earn even more business. So that's been, our secret. If you want to call it our secret sauce, it's not a secret. It's just back to basics. Be a
Yeah.
problem solver and help your customer be better at his or her job.
I love what you said there about if the problem is going to take 6 to 8 months, redefine the problem. Because I do find that like organizations have, capacity to their memory of what they're doing, to some extent. And if you like, and
In
when you
today's
do,
world, yes.
yeah, I mean, when you get into the 6, 8 months, it's like people like, I'm already on to something else. I forgot about that problem. Yeah. So like that, I think you're really onto something there.
Well, we have some things that show an upfitting. We try to optimize that opportunity, and we look at, what are the root causes of whether it's accidents, what are our lines of sight, whether it's not only accidents on the road, but ergonomic problems for the operator. Do they have tough time getting into the back of the vehicle to either strap on equipment or access equipment or organize their equipment? So if we can help them be more efficient at their job, reducing accidents, reducing downtime, increasing uptime, reducing time on at the customer, they can serve more customers. They can, be more efficient in the use of our assets. And it can be 2 or 3 minutes a call, or it doesn't have to be this, oh, we saved X number of $1 million. No, we'll
Yeah.
take the crumbs. Pretty soon we have enough crumbs. We got a slice. Once we have a slice, we turn that into a loaf, and pretty soon we have a loaf of bread. So we're all about, the building mantra in fleet here, because those are the stepping stones, give us that foundation and earn that seat at the table, because they appreciate us, contributing to their success.
Well, so, you mentioned that like you are kind of maintaining the brands. So you got a lot of vehicles, you're doing acquisitions where you're getting, fleets that are of, different things. You're working with their upfitters, you're working with your upfitters, you're trying to preserve the brands. Like obviously, one of the ways to gain, some, efficiencies and make things better is through standardization. But that may be a little bit challenging of a thing to do in that environment. I mean, what like from the vendors you're working with, and you kind of talked about like how you're working with the upfitters and some of that, but like, how do you how do you balance that, like the need to kind of standardize things and bring all those lessons learned into the thing without creating so much disruption to your whole supply chain and your upfitters and the brands and all that. Like how do you kind of
Yeah.
herd those cats?
So I mentioned the discipline. We have, weekly continuous improvement meetings from the teams that we've started in each one of our programs. So we have a vehicle ordering program that has a weekly cadence to it. We have our maintenance and assistance program that has a weekly cadence to it. We have our upfitting program. They have a weekly cadence to it. So these weekly cadence are limited to 1 hour. We have an action plan, and we use the 9-step problem. We call it the A3 because it fits on one piece of paper. A piece of paper is called, that 8.5 by 11 is A3. So it's got 9 steps. Define the problem or the theme, then define the problem. What is the current state? And usually that's data. You got to have data. Then we have targets of opportunity. We form the team and we develop an action plan. And then from the action plan, you say, okay, every week that you're meeting is you're going over and say who has responsibility and accountability for these targets and this part of the action plan. And we report out on our progress. And that's where it comes in. If our problem statement is more than that 6 to 8 month time frame, your problem statement is wrong. So redo your problem statement and focus your team. And so that in the vehicle ordering stage, we have to have a plan. And vehicle planning starts and forecasting because it's an annual cycle. So right there, you're only going to plan a year out, and how we're going to plan for those incoming vehicles and then upfitting those vehicles and we follow that plan through, and then we start that over again and say, do we need to change upfitters? Do we need more presence in this part of the country? But that plans then starts with the tools of what needs to be replaced this year, and where's that vehicle currently en route, and what's it being utilized? How many miles does it have? So we have a system of these tools that goes into that structured problem solving action planning stage, and helping us forecast. And as we train that, we get better at it. It's like an orchestra. The more you practice, the better you get. And so as we train that process, we say that's 1 lap around the track every year. Okay, next lap. Next year, we're going to get a little bit better. And so don't try and reinvent everything. Just get better at how you're doing it and find out, listen to your customers to say where their pain points are and what their business is doing and how we can be a better partner to streamline those services. And that resonates through the ownership and accountability. So when we take on a supplier and a provider, our tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, we got tier 1 OEM, tier 2, which is our upfitters, tier 3, which is equipment goes in those upfitters. Everybody's involved, and they are participants in our cadence meetings. And so they know Thursday, 9:30 every Thursday, that's the MAP cadence meeting. And those people that need to be there, they're there. Sometimes we end early. We don't go late. We respect people's time, but we know every Thursday at 9:30, that's the MAP meeting. And each one has their own cadence and their own schedule. And we stick to that and drive that through the supply chain. So now they know if they're going to be a supplier for Rollins, that's the way we roll. That's the culture we build. And they can understand that they're going to be accountable. And quite honestly, they relish it. I think they like that routine and they respond well to it. Not every supplier survives. I mean, that's some are better than others. And we go through that process every year. We have our supplier summit meeting. That's one of our check-ins every fall to say, okay, how did we do last year? And who's going to earn the business next year? Because it's, next man up mentality.
Well, and I think that's great the way you're approaching that because, people pay a lot of lip service to that partnership. when talking about your vendors and things like that. But I think it's a sign of a mature organization when they can they don't look at it as sort of an
Yeah,
adversarial relationship, but they're
not at
comfortable
all.
partnering. And I think what you're talking about is really important for sure.
So, and I do that in front of our customers. Our customers may have, a bad experience with one of our suppliers, and or it could be our issue. It could
Right.
not our fleet, but our own branch didn't pick up the vehicle, and somebody else got blamed for it, or oh, that darn X company. I said, wait a minute, if you got a problem with them, we own that relationship. We fleet. So let me understand what the problem is. We'll go root cause it and we'll bring you back what the solution is, because that's the only way we can get better. We got to prevent.
Yeah.
If it's our problem, we own it. If it's, sometimes it's communication, sometimes it's lack of data, or data that's incorrect data. I mean, we are our own best, let's say, process improvement. We own that, and we can get better at our job. And so we've got some gaps in our own program that we've closed up and earned a better reputation than we had 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned data a couple times now too, and one of the things that I hear from fleet leaders is the increasing relevancy and importance of data, and not only the relevancy of the data, but the amount and types of data that they can now collect. What, like, for your organization, what are sort of the like key data points that you're collecting, and like where do you see a need to collect more data?
So again, our mission is total cost ownership. So
Right.
we're constantly evaluating the fit and function of the vehicles we're putting into the fleet. And that's, from drivetrain to, fuel type. And, are we ready for the electric vehicle? Our personal, goal is more towards the hybrid. We're getting,
Yeah.
because of the business that we're in, and the ability to, the structure is just not there to support an EV utility fleet.
Right.
So that's a key thing, is what vehicles are we putting in the fleet, and what are the best ones to serve our customers. The other part of it is, like I mentioned, upfitting. We've done a lot of streamlining of our upfitting to where now we've earned the trust and respect of the bug people. They thought, well, you guys don't know how to design a bug truck. You've never you never killed a bug except with your windshield. And I said, well, you're you know what, you're not wrong. So we listened to them. So we structured what we called our fleet rodeo. And every year they bring in all the presidents for the mid-year review. And we had a nice facility here in Atlanta. And I said, okay, we're going to bring in one truck from every brand that we upfit. We did this two years in a row. We called it truck rodeo, and we displayed them around the parking lot. And during their lunch break, we fed them a nice barbecue. You can get great barbecue here in Atlanta. We
Yeah.
fed them a nice barbecue and had them come out and look at all the trucks that they were ordering. And the other thing we did is we put the price tag next to all of them.
Oh,
And
interesting.
oh boy, because they were there for their business review. And so the guy from Western is now justifying the price of his truck to the guy from Orkin. And the guy from Orkin is justifying his price of his truck to the guy from Clark. Charlie and his guys just sitting back there and said, hey, just telling you, we're not telling you to do this, but you guys. And so after 2 years of that, we got down to a pretty standard design that meets safety, ergonomics, security. We checked all the boxes and say, there's the truck. And by the way, it's the most economical one. And so now we got them all kind of. So we did this truck rodeo. I said, you can do this every year. I said, no, we're doing it because we know it's going to bring us down. So now we have a lot less different concatenations of our trucks with our suppliers. So
Yeah.
we can get down to, we're not down to 2, but we're
Right.
down to a heck of a lot less than where we were. And the difference is, one guy wants a black one guy wants a white one. One guy gets this decal, one guy gets that decal. But the topper, the ladder rack, the bed slide, the tank, boom, we got that nailed.
I mean, that's a great way to approach your standardization, challenges like collaboratively, right?
Yeah, yeah, it worked.
So one of the, I mean, you mentioned your four guys, and you said you have 18,000 vehicles on the streets.
Yeah,
I mean that like the vehicle per person ratio there is, way out of, like way out of the park. Like how do you? I mean, are you collecting telemetry from these vehicles? I mean, like how do you get, how
yes.
do you know where everything is, and like what does that look like?
So we put a GPS on every vehicle, so
Okay.
we know where it is, and we know where it is in the production schedule. So it goes in one of the first things in the upfitter, and we can track it all the way through to auction and, and sale of the vehicle. So that's we get data out of that for driver training and safety, and we also get it for vehicle maintenance and repair, and does it need to go to a shop. So anything with an over-temp gets my attention. If it's got a warning light on, say oil, change overdue, we that's a visual signal to the driver, and we'll remind them. But an 18,000 vehicle, that's going to happen. So
Oh
we put
yeah.
a window, and we measure compliance. They got to be above every branch has got to be over 90% compliance to the service schedule. Otherwise, they get notes from the fleet team, and so we've gone from 72% to approaching 90%. That's our goal for the fleet, because that's what we're told, best in class. So
Yeah.
we want to be best in class. Doesn't matter whether it's a utility fleet or over the road truckers. We want to be best in class for any fleet.
Yeah.
So we monitor that data. But the key for any vehicle, and I learned this from Brinks because we had a horrendous issue, and I would talk to my mechanics all the time. The worst thing for a vehicle is heat. So anytime there's an over temp on a vehicle that we get through GPS, they get a personal letter from myself or my maintenance manager, because over temps are a signal that something is going to blow.
Yeah.
And we've pretty much eliminated we don't do any heavy trailering or overweight the vehicles. So we've pretty much eliminated any blown engines or a lot of unscheduled downtime by focusing on that key parameter: oil temp, transmission temp, and the water temp in the vehicle. As soon as that temperature spikes, that's when we get that vehicle in for a checkup.
Yeah. I mean, that's common sense, I guess, but I think it's a
It's
piece that
basic,
gets
yeah.
missed a lot, and I think, when you talk about optimizing, your costs and your investment, eliminating downtime, not having to tow, big vehicles, keeping them on the
Yeah.
road, with a little bit of maintenance, that's definitely the way to go for sure, right?
Yeah, I think the secret to managing a fleet is we don't have redundancy. So I can't do what my fleet managers do. In other words, we look at the life cycle of the vehicle, and we say, okay, person one, you've got everything from ordering to upfitting and sell the vehicle. So they're all about inventory. Do we have the right
Yeah.
inventory in the field? Then I've got another manager who's responsible for all of the upfitting and all the vendor management that goes into that, to include, once the vehicle lands at the upfitter, to getting that vehicle on the road ready at the branch, ready to utilize. Then I have my third manager. He's responsible. He's my operations guy. So once that vehicle goes live, till we turn it in for sale, so fuel cards, maintenance and repair, registration, license and title, tolls and violations, everything on the operations of that vehicle. So we've got the total life cycle covered, but we're not mini me's. We're not like, okay, you got this brand soup to nuts. You got these two brands soup to nuts. We divide up our total life cycle costs, so they have we have like 8 stages. Okay, you got responsibility for stages 1, 3, and 8. You got responsibility for stages 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So that's why That's where I get into flow. If I got a problem in stage 6, I know who's accountable for stage 6. It says,
Yeah.
what's going on at stage 6? So I'm looking at flow and seeing where the bottlenecks and where the traffic jams. We know how long it's supposed to take at each stage of our vehicle life cycle. So if it's not moving, it's not FIFO, it's not, first in, first out, we know we got a traffic jam. We got a problem. What's holding this up? Is it a transporter? Is it equipment supplier? Is it an upfitter? Is it, we had a hailstorm or, an act of God or something. So but everything's got to move through those stages. And that's where I come in. I get to see, the conductor here, where are we having the problems and help solve problems. So it's just solving problems at a different level, but from the suppliers to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers to my team, we're all about solving problems and making things flow.
I mean, you mentioned your supply chain, and that's like, it's a really key. And part of the supply chain is just like kind of internal supply chain. But, we are entering a little bit of a time here where we're seeing a lot of supply chain constraints. Definitely in the vehicle market, there's
Definitely
looking to be some, significant bottlenecks there. What are you doing to prepare for that, or how is that impacting you, or is that even a problem for you?
No, it's a problem for every fleet manager. It's getting either allocation or getting the vehicles when they need them. So I mentioned our supply chain and our forecasting model, which really kicks it off. We know to be first in line at the production, to get the production slots we want, we've got to have our fleet replacements and our forecasts in. We got to get our vehicles orders in first. So we continually try and move that back and try and forecast up to a year out. So this is where our fleet management company has to have good, accurate data when we're predicting these vehicles based upon their usage today to be replaced. And our customers are demanding more and more of their vehicles in Q1 because they're doing the hiring. We downsize, and when the bugs go dormant in the northern states in the winter, you're not getting too many mosquitoes on those lakes in Minnesota when you're ice fishing.
You get a lot of mice indoors, though.
Yeah, but you're sure as heck getting those mosquitoes in August when you're trying to fish on the chain of lakes up there. But
for sure.
So we don't, we turn in a lot of vehicles in the fall, but we need vehicles coming when our hiring season starts in Q1. They need vehicles for these technicians to be able to do their job and service customers. So that's where the seasonality comes in play. And then for us to backwards plan, for us to have a vehicle land, let's say March 1st in let's say Texas, we've got to have them at the upfitter, by February 1st or January 15th. To get them at the upfitter on January 15th, we need to have them produced by December 15th or December 1st. And so that backwards planning to get that production slot for any volume, we need to have our orders in by, September 1st of the previous year. So as we look at what went well on our planning cycle, we do our after action report, after action review, rather than our strategy planning in January every year. We look back and said, what did we do well last year and where did we fall short? And then we tweak our process, say, well, we got to do better next year.
Yeah. One thing I've heard from a lot of folks is that they're accelerating their, early, first half of the year purchasing because there's anticipation that the back half of the year is going to be more constrained. Is that something that you're doing, or what's your thoughts on that?
Definitely some models. What's impacted a lot of the smaller utility fleets like ours isn't so much the vehicles that we use. So, for instance, a lot of these little vans left the market. We don't use vans because we have chemicals. We can't store the vans in. You can't make a hermetically sealed van because you won't survive the lawsuits if you're trying to do that. So we consciously use the pickup type truck because Now we store our product in the rear away from outside the cab. So,
Yeah.
you cannot, be held liable for that. But anyways, what happened though, when they eliminated the vans, everybody was getting vans now wants my pickups that I'm fighting for.
Right.
So a constraint in one end of the business that we're not using caused a shortage in my end of the business, because now I got all these other people that weren't using my trucks before.
Yeah.
So we're continually having to, fight for more than our fair share. And we have to do that by one, hopefully locking up strong OEM relationships. And we pride ourselves on that, streamline our processes and be able to, use some of that volume leverage to get what we need for the business. But it hasn't been an easy chore with some of the allocation constraints that are in the business that we're in, and the price, the cost of the vehicles has just gone crazy.
Yeah.
And we can't always pass those along on the business side. So we're having to do some really innovative things on how long we can keep the vehicles,
Right.
keeping them longer. And that's because we're maintaining them better. So now we can stretch them a little bit longer. And we're buying some of the best made vehicles in the class we are. So that investment is a better one when we're trying to run them longer.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question. Are you starting to, keep your fleet
Yes.
a little bit longer? And then, but I mean, it's interesting that you say that, like, cost is not the only factor here, right? How much something costs. It's how good is it? Is it going to last however long you're going to need it to last for? And with good maintenance, is that something you can, eke a couple more years out of and really add that to the bottom line?
Well, if you don't maintain them, I don't care what you buy, you're not you're going to pay for it on the back end, especially if you try and run them longer. So that's the first thing, is maintain whatever you buy. Two, the price of parts is just skyrocketed. So our maintenance and repair budget, along with the labor, is gone up significantly. So we've got to do the services to prevent the unscheduled repairs. So for instance, if you're not doing your 7,500 mile or 10,000 mile service and you're getting your tires rotated, well, no one's looking at your brakes. So guess what? When you replace your brakes, it's good. Now you got metal to metal. Now it's not a brake job. It's a rotor job.
Right.
We shouldn't have to replace our rotors over the life of our vehicles if we're doing our brake jobs when we're supposed to do. Brakes are a wear out item. Tires are a wear out item. Wear out items are due to be replaced at a certain interval. And if you do your services on time, you prevent any of the unscheduled downtime from having to repair parts and replace parts that you shouldn't be replacing on the life of your vehicle. So
and it improves the safety of your fleet.
100%. The safest thing we can do is keep our tires with good tread and keep them inflated. That's the number one thing I tell our guys all the time, is tires are what hit the road. And if you can't stop, if you don't have any tread,
where the rubber meets
the road,
you can't turn
if you don't have any tread. Yeah. Some wise person coined that a heck of a long time before I did.
Yeah, it still applies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
as long as they're rubber.
Yeah. So I guess they're probably more complicated than that nowadays. But if your organization depends on a fleet of vehicles, it's time to think about your fleet as a strategic asset. Element delivers end-to-end solutions that reduce costs, improve productivity, and support sustainability goals. From vehicle acquisition to electrification and everything in between, Element's data-driven approach helps organizations optimize performance and keep their drivers safe and supported on the road. To learn more about how Element can move your fleet forward, visit elementfleet.com. So, I mean, it sounds like you guys have chosen to purchase your vehicles rather than, go down the leasing option, which does give you some flex.
You lease the vehicle.
You lease everything. Okay.
100%. Yeah. We only buy them when we have an acquisition and they're already, a lot of the smaller companies we buy are typically, they own their own vehicles. So
gotcha. And so that's where I have the sales at the end.
Then when we replace them, we'll release them vehicles and bring them over to our leasing operation.
Gotcha. So talk about like how does the leasing operation play? Is that like something you manage? Is I assume that's
Well,
part of
we
your
have fleet
team's.
management partner. We lease through a major fleet management company,
Yeah.
and they are our strategic partner for a lot of the programs they offer, and that we manage through their extended relationship we have with their resources. So, for instance, license and titling vehicles in 48 states, there's no way I could do that with my staff.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
done through our outsourcing program through our fleet management company. Yeah.
So what do you look for in a fleet management company? Because I mean, obviously, that's like you mentioned. I mean, like for 18,000 vehicles, all the license, registries, the titles, life cycle, all that stuff. There's a lot there. So yeah, that's got to be a really critical partner. Like, what
Oh,
makes a
yeah.
good partner in that?
Well, culture, some wise man, guy named Drucker, once said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And somebody there said, well, yeah, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So
Yeah.
we got to be culturally aligned because they're a lot of times, talking directly to our teammates in the field, whether they're calling for they need a tow or they lost a fuel card. They're calling, they're the face of my fleet department to our customers. So we want them trained in our, continuous improvement and customer service focus, and, recognized as the valued partner for exceptional service and continuous improvement and cost control. So we take great pride in their ability to demonstrate that, and we evaluate them on that. So culture is definitely a primary thing. Access to information.
Mm.
In today's world, we've got to have timely, accurate information, and that's their investment in technology and the support systems that are available to us to get information. We like to know, how much we're spending on tires, how much we're spending on oil changes,
Yeah.
what branches and brands are following our program for tire changes to request the specific tire for replacement for vehicles from approved providers. So we're managing a lot of data, as I mentioned, earlier, and where vehicles are in the supply chain, but also what it's costing us. So we've got to have real time information. So that's definitely goes a key requirement for selecting, a fleet management partner. And are they problem solvers? Do they
Yeah.
embrace that same, Lean Six Sigma that we train our team on and we pride ourselves on? And how well do they function on these project teams that they're going to be key participants on? Are they accountable? And so the level of people that they hire and their skill level and how well they're trained, and that's probably the three biggest things we look for in a fleet management company.
Yeah, I got to admit, I mean, like for a team of four to manage 18,000 vehicles, picking the right fleet management has to be a huge part of your business.
Yeah, it's part of, like I said, this supply chain, and they're a key component because they're they're an extension of our team, and really we get invited to our our different brands have their own leadership meetings throughout the year when they're recognizing the talented and the achievement of certain goals, and they'll invite some of the key uh, supply service center components like HR and fleet and real estate, and we are able to attend their meetings. Well, it's typically one person from my staff and one person from the fleet management company that man the booth there and answer those questions on, oh, can you tell me where my new vehicles are? Or I have this problem with this upfit. Can I get a new lock for this? Or, I've got vehicles that are two of them that are expired tags and registration. And so we tag team that those leadership partners, our leadership meetings with our fleet management partners, and they're a visual um you know emblem of the fleet team at Rollins, even though
Yeah.
they're not paid by they don't get a Rollins check.
We keep coming back to this partnership thing with your vendors.
Definitely.
And
Yeah. It's got to be a
and
partnership.
that sounds like a really deep relationship you have with your fleet management company. And I mean, if you're, if they're the face of your organization, that's really important. And I love what you said about culture. I think that that's one of those things that just doesn't get enough discussion. I think oftentimes is like how important culture is to the success of partnerships and to alignment between organizations.
Well, that famous man, that Peter Drucker, who's a famous management guru, he's the one that coined that years and years ago. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I don't remember the exact book I read, but it's part of any lean training. So culture's key.
What do you see as like the next big challenges? Where are you going, with Rollins? What's the next big thing on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we're working closely with Canada right now. Rollins is a worldwide company. We're doing a lot of acquisitions in the UK, in Australia, New Zealand area. I mentioned Canada. We're growing. So I think getting involved in those different areas, I've worked around the world, so I think I've got some things to offer to those businesses, and so I'm starting to develop those relationships to help them manage their fleet. So stepping off into that, and in the fleet industry, I mean, there's still, people talk global fleet. I mean, that's got a nice ring to it, but you still have to be able to operate and be profitable and solve problems in the host nation where that fleet is domiciled. I mean, the tax structures in Europe are so crazy.
Yeah.
And the effect of most employees over there have some I think they call it now mobility budget, where either they get a company car or their commute is subsidized, or there's all sorts of different laws around mass transportation or opportunities for mass transportation. So each country, solves the transportation mobility challenge a little bit differently. And you just have to respond to that, because you can't lift, what you're doing in country A and do it in country B. I mean, you've got to develop the solution for the problems that business is facing. And I think that's the place to start. And then if you see some commonality coming in to it, that's where really you can start developing regional programs. But you got to build a good foundation. And I think, too many people started out with global as an end game. Well, it is an end game, but it's not they wrote a contract and then tried to find somebody to use it. And which is back asswards. I don't know if I should say that.
No,
but
that's fine.
You go there and solve problems. Then it's like building a house. You don't start at the roof. You start at the foundation, and you got to have a good foundation. And if you can connect them at some point, more like building a bridge. You're building piers, and then you can maybe span it.
Yeah,
probably a better metaphor than building a house.
So, I mean, you mentioned you're expanding in Australia. I want to know what a bug truck in Australia looks like. Is it like a Sherman tank? Is it everything there wants to kill you?
Well, yeah. Well, you got to be able to survive a collision with a kangaroo. I know that. You can't have a little Subaru.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that's coming after you, man. Yeah. You must be the favorite person that they see when that truck comes pulling up. They'd be like, "Oh my God, get rid of these things for me." Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. I just want to say thank you so much for being on and sharing it with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoy the opportunity. Call me anytime. I'm more than happy to talk vehicles or cars or equipment. Kind of what I do in my spare time as well. I'm kind of a geek that way.
I love
a car
it.
geek. I don't know if there is such a thing, but
there's definitely a car geek. That's for sure. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.